All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Giga Rambles. I'm John Caspian, joined by Mr. John Galvin. What's up, John?
Oh, uh, back was I not here last week? I feel like I was out of town last week.
Yep, you were out of
I
town.
was. I was. Actually, I was in town. I was just moving.
Yep.
Um,
Congratulations on
but
your new house, by the way.
yeah, thanks. It's good to be back on the rambles. I kind of missed doing this Friday morning thing with you. So, but on this Friday morning, we have a couple things to go over.
Oh, a
A
couple?
bit.
Oh my gosh. We're going to have a hard time fitting this all in 1 hour.
Well, that's true. Games Workshop has basically over the last 2 weeks put out a tremendous amount of information about the new Apocalypse game, which is really awesome and to me very surprising in terms of the depth of the game that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's also new news with Age of Sigmar coming. The General's Handbook has created new points values and changed up some of the rules for everything. Privateer Press just had Lock and Load, which was a huge convention, and then we have another Giga Champions reveal for the show later on. So lots to talk
Exactly.
about.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Plus all the other new releases and things like that that came out, like Bosk for Legion
Sabine
and Bosk,
and the downed ATST.
still Bosk.
Okay, yep. It's because he's a lizard. Yeah, that's right. I always forget.
So yeah, with all that, we
Well,
have a
first of all,
lot
let's
going.
talk about the contrast availabilities for things like Dark Oath.
Oh yeah. So for those who haven't paid attention or maybe are paying attention a whole lot and want to get their hands on contrast paints, the availability should be opening up quite a bit over the next week or so. We keep ordering it in, and Games Workshop is doing their best to meet the demands. So those folks that are still waiting to get some, especially of specific colors like Dark Oath, we should hopefully have that in within a week or two. Dark Oath being the trickier one, there's either some production problems or maybe GW just was like, we don't need enough of the flesh colors, and that was a severe underestimation. Um,
Big time,
yeah,
probably.
but for me personally, I've been using the contrast paints that I have had available. I've been painting some salamanders for my lizardmen that I shouldn't be working
Nice.
on because I promised I wouldn't work on.
So which
But
colors have you picked out?
so I actually did. I wanted them to be kind of like volcanic-y looking, like
Okay.
so a cross between a fire-bellied newt and like a lava monster. So they'll have. I use the Black Templar as the base of their skin, and I gave them a orange underbelly with like hints of reds and yellows in it. And
Ooh, okay.
the big thing that I'm doing now, which is taking me forever, is I'm going back and they have a bunch of spikes on their backs. So I'm going back and I'm picking out all the spikes with that Wraithbone base paint. And I'm going to go back and do them from a yellow to a red gradient to make it look like they're glowing from the inside out. So,
Nice. Someone
yeah.
actually just asked in one of the 40K groups about they like pooled up the Dark Oath flesh too much, so it looks like
Mm,
pooly.
yeah.
But I've had success with just adding like a little bit of the contrast medium. I don't know why, but it's like anything else with GW. If you add a little bit of medium to it, it like works much better. So when I
Yeah.
do my Gilman's flesh, I just add a little bit of the contrast medium, and it's great.
Yeah. So it is. Yeah, I mean it's fun to work with, and I've seen like a lot of people coming in giving their like testimonials about how much it's been working for them. Uh,
It reminds
so
me, the old Billy Mays commercials,
right.
and he,
Hmm.
he would say like, the power of this. It'd be funny, like a
Yeah.
Billy Mays commercial, and everyone's like, I didn't even know how to paint before, and they just like dunked their models in thick paint.
Well, that's the thing is that there's so many people that come in because I've recognized the regular painters, right? The people
Hmm.
that come in and they'll buy paint pots and like talk about their progress or what they're working on with their army. But with contrast, there's a whole new group of people that I have coming in buying these paints and getting their armies together. And so many people are like, man, I was so afraid of even starting or I was timid to start, but now this contrast paint kind of reduces that anxiety about painting an entire army.
And remember, dark colors cover a multitude of sins.
Exactly.
Yeah, so if you
So
have any doubts, go with a dark color scheme. You'd be good.
absolutely. Um, So yeah, it's been great, and I'm looking forward to having them in stock as a regular purchase.
Mm-hmm. Yep, my
Just the
personal
fact.
recommendation is the snake bite leather. Have you tried that one yet, John?
Oh yeah, no, snakebite leather is really really good.
Two
Uh,
layers, like literally looks like a leather pouch. It's beautiful.
exactly. Yeah, I keep telling people to buy the snakebite leather, especially for like your Space Marines.
Oh, yeah.
Because they always have those like random especially the Primaris guys, they'll have those like random pouches on their backs and all
Yep,
that.
I
So
will find one right here. So then this dude, it's hard to see. Ah, you can't see him in the light. Never mind. I was going to show him. Can't do it.
but yeah, it contrast is an amazing tool. And Ricky Keogh was in yesterday, and he was one of the things that I found that was really cool is he was telling me about all the uses that he had for contrast paint outside of the recommended put the primer and then put contrast paint on it. He's been
Like what?
layering it over. He's been doing it using it almost like an ink to like color shift some stuff.
Right,
So
okay.
applying it over other colors than just like the wraithbone. So like he would do like a layer of gray and then put like the purple over it.
Huh.
Things to get different color values out of it, or to slightly shift just the hue of it.
Now, I have heard about people doing like like a really light metallic and then adding that. So that's interesting.
Oh yeah, like I love the metallic with the contrast over it.
Mm.
Forge World did something similar to that with their Thousand Suns, where they like primed it like a silver and they used like a almost like a contrast red over it to give that like kind of candy coat coverage of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that turns out super phenomenal. And it works really great with Space Marines in general. So if you did like Lead Belcher and then did contrast over it, it's a great way to get like a very metallic looking army. And then for like things like the little straps and like the details that are already there, like they'll be based silver for you, which is great. But on top of that, you could then put like gold over it and have like a really strong gold on it. So there's a
Nice.
lot of good uses for the contrast.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, it's something that you guys can experiment with and learn. And people are putting up tutorials like crazy for contrast
Yep.
because it's been
Yeah,
so
if you
popular.
YouTube how to paint with contrast, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Speaking of painting, we have our June painting competition that's almost done.
Yeah, lots of strong entries. I've actually been getting messages from all the people participating in it, and they're talking to me about what their inspiration was, how glad they are to see like all the different people entering it in, and how strong the field is for this particular month. Uh, it's great to see everyone just taking part. I know John, you're in it.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
let me show you mine. It is hilarious. Yeah. Assuming I can grab it. There we go. I just dropped on the floor. I'll show you in a second. Ah, there we go. So it's a
so,
Space Marine, and it looks kind of like the StarCraft Space Marines, but it's the
oh,
Reaper
nice.
Bones. I forget exactly, like
The Terrans or something like that. I
I
can't
don't know. It's like
remember.
Enforcer or something like that. I forget.
Oh,
Nova
that's right.
Corps. It's part of their Chronoscope series. But basically, I have them facing off against the Deathclaw, which I painted in about 3 minutes with contrast paints.
Yeah, once again, great use of contrast and all that.
Yep, and I
So,
have that Deathclaw around here, which I will show when I can in a second.
but yeah, it's really great. I love the people that are really diving into the theme of it. Chris Miller's been doing this like really amazing piece with a centurion in a beach,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is great. Matt Blaisdell had his whole basically military camp out in the desert, which I love. I believe it was for Flames of War. It was either Flames of War or Team Yankee, but it was one of the
I think
the
Team
15
Yankee, because it's
millimeter. Yeah,
the Israeli Defense Force.
that's right. Yeah, and so that's such a cool theme. But even then, like you don't necessarily have to have that strong of a theme to be a contender in this. We have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people who are painting models where they even like loosely put together like a theme. Like Curtis is working on his Master of Possession. I want to say there's a couple other pieces that are just absolutely gorgeous.
Well,
So
mine is a play, like an ironic play on the fact that when you sometimes the old like Starship Troopers things was get to
yeah.
see the galaxy, but you're really just
Oh
fighting
yeah.
monsters and aliens. So that was my theme for my thing is like, the propaganda poster is, see the universe, and then you're staring
Yeah.
at a Deathclaw.
Yeah, no. See, that's great. And it's really easy for these painting competitions to paint a piece that you want to while stretching the theme to work for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's good for everyone to know. John, where can they check out all these gorgeous paintings?
Giga's Painting and Conversion Corner. So if you look up Giga and then painting, you should see the group. And
And
we
that's on
have all of
Facebook, right?
our groups have our lettering on the image as well, so you can always tell when it's a Gigabytes group. So if you check that out and join it, please do, and become part of both the competitions as well as just posting your stuff. We've had a very active the last month or two. The group has been very active with people posting their models. I
Yeah,
post in there a lot. Just progress. It's awesome.
yeah, yeah. So absolutely, something to check out. And we'll move on to Apocalypse.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be huge.
Yeah, yeah. So a couple things with Apocalypse. We talked about it at least a little bit ago. There's a whole lot of new box sets coming out for almost every faction
Mm-hmm.
for 40K, and so all of these groups are a tremendous deal. So if you guys haven't ordered one or pre-ordered one, please do so. They're going to be very limited. It's going to be a one print run. You're saving at least like 25-30% off of retail with these box sets, and it's a great way to get into a new faction or just expand one that you currently have. I've been
Yep.
eyeing the
So,
Space Marine one for my
uh-huh.
salamanders. But so on top of that, not only do you have these box sets, but Apocalypse has changed a lot from what it's been in the previous systems.
So I never
Apocalypse
played the old Apocalypse. What was that like?
So the old Apocalypse was basically just an expansion for 40K. So you would get rules on how to play and manage huge games. So it would just be an addendum to 40K. So you would just get like different battalions, different ways of using some of the models that you have, but not completely new rules like you do with Apocalypse this time.
Okay.
Apocalypse this time is going to be a lot closer to how they handled Kill Team for this edition, where the roles of the models are going to change. You can use all the models in your collection, but now they have different stats to accommodate these gigantic games you're going to be playing. And the idea of this is to make sure that the Apocalypse games are fun, fast paced, and are about the same time length ish of a normal 40K game. So, I mean, obviously, it'll be a little bit longer depending on what kind of game you're playing and how big it's going to be. But the idea of this new edition is to increase the action level of Apocalypse games, and also to make it not that your opponent takes like a 2.5 hour turn before you get to go, right? Because that's not nearly as fun.
It's one of the hardest parts about it when you have someone who has a horde army and they're just pushing models around for 30 minutes.
Yeah,
Especially if they're really picky about their moving and you're like, just move the models.
yeah, yeah. It's like just go, just like snap your fingers, like
That's why I have
make it fun.
Custodes.
Yeah,
And I just got Necrons actually, so I'm going to get huge movement trays for my warrior horde. I've
yeah.
got 36 currently, so I'm going to have two groups of 20.
And that's one of the new items that's coming out, which is the movement trays. They come in 25, 32, and 40 millimeters. There's several sets per box depending on the box that you get. But the idea of this is that this is another way of speeding up the game, is that you can put your models on these movement trays and get them to go. And you can even use these movement trays in the standard 40K game and then also Age of Sigmar. I know in the Age of Sigmar community, people have been really fond of the movement trays just as a way of making those horde armies play a bit quicker. So it is super, super useful when you have like 100+ rats or orcs on the table and you need to
Oh.
get them across the board. I know with our last the Alpha Strike tournament that was here
Mhm.
like a week or so ago, um, there was an orc player that was just basically like struggling to get all of his boys across the table in a timely manner. So it was really, really movement trays are something I would really recommend to him to increase the time frame. So, but yeah,
And they're cool because they're not like uniform spacing. They have
correct.
like different patterns when you put them in there. So
Hmm.
when you're looking at it, it won't look like they're rank and file. They'll still
Yep.
look kind of scattered, like it's a current how modern military works. How they're not like perfectly spaced out,
Yeah.
which is cool. So it won't look as like Victorian of them all standing shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really makes movement trays possible in all these games now is the removement or the removal, not removement, removal of the templates, like the AOE
Yes.
templates and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it really, like, once again, this is all about speeding up the game and increasing the fun factor for everyone playing. And Apocalypse is taking that to the next level. So it's saying, oh, hey, we know that there's a group of people that have massive collections and they love the idea of these like out of control, giant, planet sized battles. Well, we want to make sure that they can play that, have rules for it, and do it in a timely manner so they're not spending like 2 or 3 days just trying to play a single
Right.
game.
Now, have you because this is my biggest question, how big of a force is like a typical game supposed to take? So if I have 2,000 points of Custodes, what does that translate to in Apocalypse? I haven't been able to
So
find.
yeah, I haven't found point conversions or anything like that. But like the idea of Apocalypse is that you're going to go beyond that like 2,000 point. Like
Right.
I would probably say like 2,000 points in Apocalypse, maybe even below the smallest like starting point in Apocalypse kind of thing. So
Yeah, I'm
uh,
so curious because they have the data sheets now, which
yep,
is interesting. They actually revealed some of the new releases that are going to be happening just by name, you know?
yep,
So
yeah.
like with the
So
Sisters of Battle, you have a lot of the names there. But they have point values for that, but I have no idea. They might say, "Oh, your typical game needs to be 500 points." I don't
right,
know.
and what that translates to in 40K,
Right.
I don't know yet.
Because like
Um,
Kill Team, 5 models is 100 points sometimes.
yeah,
So totally
thousands
different.
on.
I'm very curious about that.
Yeah. So it is interesting to see how this game's developing and how it'll take off. I was personally like blown away by the reception of our local players for it.
Mm-hmm.
Not only are they ordering the box sets, but they're also ordering a lot of the core kit. So like this is
Oh,
something
sweet.
that will be definitely a viable format here at Gigabytes, and I would love to see some Apocalypse events. I don't think necessarily Apocalypse, like I mean, and it might lend itself to tournament play, but I think it's much more of like a day event where you have massive armies meeting together. So like maybe even where we throw 6 of our tables into one big table, so that we can have like a massive free for all for Apocalypse.
And then the gameplay was very interesting. So I'm not a big fan of the ones that feature what is her name from Critical Role? Becca
Uh,
Scott.
yes, I
Yeah,
think that sounds right.
she kind of irritates me when she's like, "Oh, and this is super cool." I kind of just want to see the gameplay. That's just a pet peeve of mine. But
Yeah,
it was a cool video to see. You get to activate all your units and do actions with them before you take casualties, which
right.
is one of the problems with 40K right now in 8th edition is that, you got this whole thing and you hope to God that your really powerful unit doesn't get alpha striked off the board.
Exactly.
So it would
Uh,
be interesting to be able to play that. And then lots of D12s.
yeah, and so basically that's another way of scaling the game and making it accessible, right?
Okay.
So the D12 is so basically you'll be using D6 and D12s, and some things will wound on a D12, and some things will wound on a D6 depending on the strength level. Um,
Gotcha.
so
Hmm.
basically, like I believe there's some things that can only be wounded by a D12, right? So like you'll need to take those stronger weapons and things like that to do it. And this just adds to the feel of Apocalypse, right? Where like
Hmm.
your rank and file infantry may not be able to gun down like a Titan, right? I mean, it just makes sense. They're designed to be a little bit tougher than that. So you might need to bring either like a demon prince or a bane blade or your own titan to fight someone else. It's just great ways to kind of get that scale and that feel of Apocalypse, right?
The end times. It's great.
Yeah,
So segueing into from Apocalypse into July. So we have pre-orders will go up tomorrow for that, but you can
correct.
go ahead and message us which of the battalion boxes you want. Let us know.
Yes.
We'll put your name
Um,
down. So you can go ahead and put that in the comments here. You can message the store. You can call us,
Absolutely.
however you want to do that. But let's segue into Sci-Fi July. So the theme of June was vacations and
Yep.
kind of getaways. We had Giga Getaways. But then this
Absolutely.
month is going to be Sci-Fi July. You want to tell us about it, John?
Yeah. So Sci-Fi July is basically a one of my personal favorites because it's my birthday month. But we are honoring all of the classic genres of sci-fi. So it's not just going to be specific things like aliens or Starship Troopers, but it's going to be your robot movies, your alien movies, your killer plants movies, that sort of stuff. And we're really going to push that theme here in the store, and we're going to make sure that things get a little bit. We're going to do the decorations of sci-fi. We're going to do another paint competition. We're going to have food specials, and we'll also be featuring a lot of sci-fi games through board games, or even maybe sci-fi games that you haven't heard about before, in terms of like miniatures and things like that. So we're basically focusing on the science fiction elements of the hobby and how all those things have basically affected tabletop as a whole. We
So a
carry a lot
favorite
of.
one that's sci-fi that you probably haven't heard about, if you play Gigabytes, you might have seen, is called Ethereum, which is really
Yes.
cool.
Yeah, no, Ethereum fits into that sci-fi genre super well. For those that don't know, you're basically playing in cyberspace. And what that means is the world itself is constantly shifting around and being reprogrammed as you're playing in a game. So the board is constantly shifting and moving and changing, and that adds a whole new tactical level to that sci-fi game. But like sci-fi is such a core aspect to tabletop gaming, and it's something that we wholly embrace with everything that we have here, and we're going to make a huge deal about it for the month of July. So it's really exciting. I'm kind of happy to show off a lot of the stuff that our staff has been doing for Sci-Fi July, especially
Do you have any
Rachel.
ideas of what you want to paint for July?
So for Sci-Fi July, I think I'm actually going to be doing some Monster Apocalypse, and I think I'm going to be doing the Planet Eaters, which are the kind of like Saturday morning cartoon invaders from outer space. Like maybe not Saturday morning cartoons. They're the like daytime TV kaiju outfits, like what you would see in Power Rangers or any sort of the Sentai shows from Japan. So basically, they look like dudes in rubber suits, but they have this really cool flair to them.
Now, would you consider things like Dust or Wild West Exodus sci-fi, or those are more of the diesel punk? How would you consider those?
So, I mean, it depends on your definition, like how broad you want to be with science fiction. But basically, I would say yes, Dust is science fiction. Same with Wild West Exodus, and then you can do subgenres from there. But basically, the thing with Dust is that it's not really rooted in fantasy; it's all rooted in science fiction, right? Like, so Dust is about what would happen if we found this crazy new technology in the middle of World War II. And it's an exploration of that what if with that new technology, that new science, right, that came in and how it affected the world. And same with Wild West Exodus. It is a very similar thing where it's well, what if during the Cowboys we had this new technology, this new access to both science and other sorts of endeavors, kind of thing. So yeah, I would classify them as science fiction.
Good, because
Um,
I have some Imperial Japanese Navy that I have to paint up, and
oh, good.
they look. By the way, they look absolutely freaking amazing. So the
Yeah,
models are phenomenal. If you haven't seen the latest Dust stuff, there's some new releases coming in August, but a lot of those releases are just look incredible. It's really good stuff.
yeah. And to ramble a little bit, during school, one of the classes I got to take, one of my free electives, was a science fiction and literature class. And one of the biggest genres of science fiction literature is alternate history, right?
Really
So,
interesting. Okay.
yeah. And so that I would say Wild West Exodus, Dust, um, all that sort of stuff, like Carnival, like you can all take that as alternate history, and it's basically as long as it doesn't go too far to the fantasy side, like as long as they're not incorporating like magic and all that sort of things, like it's definitely sci-fi. So
So then, going away from sci-fi, we have another new release. It's coming out. It should be July 5th, which is Parabellum's Conquest. So
yes,
we've raved about it because A, the models are gorgeous, and I actually have a comparison that I prepared to show off what a scout looks like next to one of the crossbowmen from the starter set. So
Yeah.
here is a size comparison. So you see a 36. Let me get my head out of the way. 36 millimeters, which means that they are definitely larger. They're about, I don't know, the Space Marine head doesn't quite go up to the guy's shoulder, so it's definitely
Yeah.
bigger. But
Yeah.
the starter set is going to include, if you've seen it in the images, it has this big monster, this four-legged monster that comes with the starter set. Then you have 24 infantry for the clones, and then I think 12 bowmen for the clones, which is
Yeah.
36, 37 models on one side. Then on the other side, you have cavalry, which are these big guys. I don't know where I was painting the cavalry guy earlier, prepping for a stream later today. But this horse is huge, along with the guy that rides it. And I think there's three to six of those. And then there's another 24 infantry on the, I guess, the human side. And then there's a bunch of crossbowmen, which are these dudes. So the starter set alone is packed with models. And they said that there was enough models for you to have your base game with, which is awesome. Like, you can play your first missions with that. So we're going to get a product list for people who want to pre-order that. So I should have that today for people who want to go ahead and pre-order the models. But the models are amazing and beautiful, and I think they'll work really well with contrast paints. Just looking at them, like seeing the type of detail on the pants and the shirts and stuff, I think it'll work really, really well with contrast.
Especially the elves, the clones. Like, they're just made for contrast. Like,
Pure
they'll
flesh.
look-
So I have something called a Pharaohmancer, which is part of the starter set. So he's like, it looks like a beekeeper, like a medieval beekeeper. So he has like this face mask on and stuff, and he's got this like gas pouch thing. And besides the metal, the contrasts work really well. So I'll try to show that off later.
Yeah. So Parabellum, for those that don't know about Conquest, the scale is larger. It is fantasy. It is rank and file. And also the miniatures themselves are hard plastic. So you're not going to have to assemble a bunch of like resin or metal pieces to get these armies going. They're all hard plastic kits. Two factions at the start with two following pretty quickly afterwards. I know they have different names, but I'm just going to go ahead and use their generic terms. But we have dwarves and Norsemen coming. The Norsemen are going to be like a collective of Norse mythology races, and the dwarves are going to be your pretty standard, not quite good dwarves.
Yeah. So didn't they kill the good dwarves? They like
Something
offed
like that.
them.
Yeah, like I know basically you have these dwarves coming, and I think that's it for the dwarves, or at least they don't have plans for more dwarves after that. But yeah, so there'll be four factions roughly at the start of the game, and all of them look great, and there's a reason to play every single one depending on your personal aesthetics. I'm kind of leaning towards the dwarves because some of them are riding things that could be construed as dinosaurs. So
They basically are. So the one of them has two massive cannons on the side.
Yeah.
And then, like, this dwarven dude who's up there, I can't remember, because I took the picture back in Gamma in March. And it's got, like, the one dude who's, like, looks like a Captain Morgan style, like, leg up and, like, pointing at the enemy. Like, bring him to me. I think they said there was two variants on the big lizard rider thing. But those dwarves look freaking amazing. Like, they have the intricate, like, facial hair patterns, and they're slightly taller. Like, obviously these are 36 millimeters, they're larger models in general, but even the dwarves were bigger than, like, a typical dwarf that you imagine from World of Warcraft or from, Age of Sigmar or whatever. They look like beefy bros,
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that they are generally more broad than they are short, right? Like, their proportions are obviously dwarf. It's just that they are not the, like, stunties that you would necessarily equate them to. But yeah, so it is it comes out July 5th, so we should be getting our starters here soon. So I might be playing elves or the clones, as you want to call them, when they first arrive, and then switch over to dwarves, because I'm really excited about this game.
Are you familiar with how the gameplay works at all yet?
No, I'm not, and so that's
Okay.
one of the reasons why I'm
So I was
excited.
able to watch a couple of different how to play videos, and I also got to read through the rule book, which is available. Also, all the lore is available online. Basically, it's a rank and file or rank and flank game. You start off with your skirmishers first, so you have, I don't know, 8 or so rounds in a game. You start
Okay.
off with your skirmishers coming on first, and they're the ones that try to, weed down the enemy, try to thin out their ranks and everything.
Yep.
Then you have bigger units. You have basically small type units, which are infantry and crossbows and stuff, and skirmishers. Then you have your medium units, which are things like cavalry or those kind of medium sized things. And you have your large units such as monsters or I don't know, big vehicles and stuff like that, or big
Right. Right.
creatures. So then they all come on, starting with light, then medium, then heavy, and eventually you come up the board as the heavier stuff comes on, so they don't actually have to start all the way in the back. So you start off and you get engaged, and you stay engaged pretty much the whole time. And the way that their movement system works is basically like closest point of your group of models to their closest point. So there's less of the exact measuring of, oh, I can only move X amount, so I can't quite attach. It's like, okay, I'm within 10 inches, I engage them.
Nice.
So it works really smooth from what I saw of the gameplay.
Yeah.
Very, very. They said a lot of trading off was a big component of it. So if you have your, unit here and I have mine, they're going to trade off blows very quickly. So there's a lot of tactical depth there. And then finally, the initiative was fascinating to me. So typically you have like I choose which model I go, and then if it's a you go, I go, then sorry, if it's an alternating activation, then it's you pick a unit, then I pick a unit. Well, in this, you actually have to pick a card for each type of unit. So let's say I have
Okay.
2 monsters and 3 crossbows. I'll have 3 crossbow cards and 2 monster cards. That way, when I put in which order I want to activate, I can pick which of that type I use, because all of
Gotcha.
the initiative cards are per type. So
Oh, okay.
it's yeah. Go ahead.
No, 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 no. I'm just following. It sounds interesting.
Yep. So it's good, and then I think it's a low roll system. So like if I have a morale of 4, then I'm looking for a 4 or lower. So I think most everything's on a D6. So it's going to be good. I think it's going to actually be a pretty fast-paced game, and it can go from a fairly small size to a huge size. So the one we saw at Gamma was a massive 4x6 board with tons of models on it. But I still think it'll activate pretty quickly.
Nice. Well, cool. Hold on just one second. I'll be right back.
Yep. So yeah, Parabellum. It should be very fun. I'm definitely gonna get. I like the humans, so they have like the soldiers with the 2 hands. I'd show you. I probably should have prepped the images beforehand, but basically they have like long swordsmen, which have this cleave ability, which reduces armor and everything. So even if the enemy has shields and they can prevent normal blows, you can just cleave right through it. A cool thing, the game creators said that if you have things like crossbows or ranged weapons, you can't cause the enemy to rout because of ranged weapons. So you basically, in the battle, you can't have a purely ranged focus army. You have to also include melee stuff in order to cause that battle shock to happen and cause enemies to flee. So if you have just a bunch of crossbowmen, you're not going to win the battle from that, which is interesting. It's good.
Yeah. Really cool tactics to it. So
Yep. Lots
that'll
of
be
things.
next week. And then also with next week, we have the official launch of Malifaux Third Edition. So that's pretty exciting. I've been looking into the new models that are coming out and all the really cool stuff, and trying to decide whether or not I'm going to stick with Gremlins or go to Neverborn, or what I'm going to do with that. But for those interested, we're going to have a big release day. Matt Riddle and a lot of the other guys who play Malifaux in the area are going to be coming out, running games, giving demos, doing all that sort of stuff for the new edition. So if you
So what are the
guys,
biggest like changes for third edition for those who don't haven't kept up?
so basically the biggest one is going to be bookkeeping. The game used to have hundreds of individual rules with multitudes of effects and all that sort of stuff. And the idea is to make the game approachable. So they're limiting down the special effects, I want to say, to either 5 or 8. So um, you don't have to basically read everyone's cards to figure out what's exactly going on. If the person's going to bleed or weaken you or do anything like that, you will know what that means because it's one of the very few special effects that are on the board. Other things that they're doing is that they're redesigning the cards to be a little bit more uh, uh, easier to read, I think is the best way to say it. But yeah, they're basically
Better user experience.
yeah, the new design is great. They're coming out with new models, which all look fantastic. The new Marcus crew, and then on top of all of that, they are changing how you build your lists to be more keyword specific. So I brought up Marcus. He is the beast guy. So he is all about manipulating animals and like creating these chimeras. So that means anything with like the chimera keyword, he gets to use in his crew, regardless of what faction it is. So it's based on the keyword itself, which is really cool. And I personally love the new design of his box set. But on top of that, every single master in the game has new keywords associated with it. And the big thing is you can take stuff outside of the keyword that you have. It just costs you one extra soul. So instead of being like a cost 5 model, it would be a cost 6, right? But it still gives you that flexibility. So sometimes it is definitely worth it to take that thing that's outside of your keyword just to make yourself better. You know, so I really enjoy that
Now,
whole.
I've never actually played Malifaux, so it's typically like 5 to 10 models. I know it's
Yeah,
skirmish size.
it's usually 5 to 10. It really depends on the crew itself, because there are some people like Hamlin who summons rats, or like some of the guys who do summon, they can get out of hand, right? Like you can have a bunch of little rats around, so the rats aren't nearly as powerful. They just are going to be running around themselves. Um, but yeah, David on the Gigabytes said Malifaux, the third edition, launches officially today, but we are doing our launch day. Is it as early as tomorrow? But it is all coming out, and I'm super excited about it. The other guy that I'm excited about is his name's Oedipus, and if you are a Greek guy, he is not the Oedipus from Greek mythology. He is a giant, more or less. So, oh, it is tomorrow. Tomorrow's the Welcome Back to Malifaux third edition. So, I got the dates mistaken. I thought it was next week. But tomorrow, from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., we're going to be having people up here learning the new system of Malifaux, new cards, all that sort of stuff going on. So I'm excited about it. John, should I go giants or beasts?
Oh, which one has more lizards?
I think it's actually swamp fiends that have the most lizards because you
Then
get to
why aren't
have
you doing that?
alligators. Doing something different,
What?
maybe. I don't know. Maybe I can't. I think there's like snakes in the beasts.
Then snakes, beast, son.
Yeah, cool. All right, we're gonna do that.
Unless there's monkeys, which I recommend that. Whichever
So
that one is.
that's my issue with Oedipus is that Oedipus, the master, he's like a giant, but he kind of looks like a yeti. So kind of
So do
monkey.
him.
No, I mean like I'm kind of interested in the giants list, but he's kind of scary. Um, but yeah, so Malifaux third edition's coming back. I know our own Morgan, she's been excited to play third edition. She has this beautifully painted Fae set of Malifaux. So it's all really
So
kind of
exciting.
hyped up.
We also
Yeah,
have Wild West Exodus demos. Is it today or tomorrow with CJ?
Fridays.
Friday.
The Wild West Exodus are on Fridays, so we've been having a lot of people coming up buying those models.
And it's super awesome. Like
Yeah,
when I first saw it, I didn't realize how cool the models were. And then we got the Red Oak starter set to show off on some paint streams throughout July.
yeah.
So it's really cool stuff. Like at
Well,
first you don't think, oh yeah, cyberpunk or sci-fi Wild West, but it totally works.
yeah. So
Totally.
demos today for that. We should see a lot of people off Wild West Exodus. Um, and we have the full range here for anyone who's looking to pick it up or get started. Uh, CJ has been doing the demos, and he's been doing a great job of getting people into the game, getting people interested. I know a lot of folks have collections already, so I'm excited to see it grow here at the store and keep going. But yeah, oh my God, it's already 15 minutes. We got
Oh
15
my
minutes left,
gosh.
John, and we
That's
got
how the
so much
rambles
to.
work, man. You just kind of start talking and it kind of goes.
All right,
Okay,
well,
yeah. So we got Apocalypse, Sci-Fi July. Any
let's do
new
the
releases in
champion.
terms of board games, RPGs, etc.?
New releases for board games and such. We got Bosk, which is not Bosk, but Bosk.
Wait, wait, what?
Here, let me go grab it. I'll be right back.
I started to say, Bosk proper is 2S. That's the pronoun for Bosk. If you don't know who he is, he was in Empire Strikes Back. He was very famous for not having shoes, which I'm pretty sure goes against the Imperial dress code on a Imperial Star Destroyer. Probably not very hygienic, but, you know, he's a lizard, so I guess it's okay.
Yes.
But I wish he was more featured in the movies, but you only see him for like a minute. But that's the cool thing about Star Wars. Oh,
He's
1S, okay.
Yeah. So Bosk is basically it's really interesting because I didn't realize that the name itself was close to this, but it's a game about falling leaves and the changing of colors of trees and experiencing nature. So it is a really great game. We actually got it in just this week, but the game itself is 100% gorgeous. It's kind of got that nice Euro style to it. Um, and what you're going to be doing is going through the seasons on this park, more or less, uh, taking notes, collecting, all that sort of thing. And basically, each season you're performing a different role, and then at the end, through one full cycle, is when the game will end. But we have this in stock just for now. I expect it to go quick because we got 20 something in, and I think we have 3 left. So if you guys are interested in Bosk and not the Lizardman Bosk, come check that out.
But if you are interested in Lizardman Bosk, then I think we have several that have already been pre-ordered. But
Yes.
there's Bosk and Sabine, which is
Correct.
the Mandalorian, I believe, the
Yes,
female
yeah.
Mandalorian.
Mhm.
And then the downed ATST, or is it AT-AT?
ATST.
Yeah, okay. And that, what is that? Like an objective, like expansion?
So basically, it's going to be a terrain piece for mostly, but I believe you can play as an objective. It has cards and rules and things like that with it. But it's a great piece of terrain for people that play the game to use outside of that as well. Basically, adding a little bit more of that Star Wars flair to your normal, board setup.
And we've had a very active Legion community, right?
We sure do. And Matt Blaisdell, I talked about him a little bit earlier with the painting competition, but he's been kind of the spearhead of the Legion community, making sure people get together, organizing events and tournaments, and doing all that sort of stuff. So we can't thank him enough for doing that for us. But we do have casual people that meet up. I'll see them here on weekends, weekdays, all that. So if you guys are interested, go to the Atlanta Legion page on Facebook. To check it out. I'm getting really interested with Bosk now being in the game, the 2S one, not the Falling Leaves one.
I mean, it's a good game, good system. I
Yeah,
played a lot with my brother. It's good.
yeah. So I mean, it doesn't take much for me to get into a game system. So yeah, now that he's here, I can start
And the
playing.
Clone Wars stuff looks freaking amazing. I'm a huge,
Yeah,
huge fan of battle droids, so it's awesome.
yeah. I always so once again, not from the movies, but from the expanded universe. I love General Grievous. He is such a scary like Jedi boogeyman in the expanded universe that I can't wait to see what his rules and all that are, how he's going to impact the game when he gets in. So
It's gonna be
yeah,
awesome. It's gonna be so cool.
um,
We first, real quick, we need to reveal our new wall champion.
yes, yeah. So we have a new champion coming up at the store, um, and by new champion, he is an old time favorite of everyone here at Gigabytes Cafe. He personally got dust started again here at Gigabytes from something to where we carried the models, but we didn't really have organized play or people actually showing up for just regular play days. He came in and said, "Hey, no matter who you are, play a game with me. I guarantee you're going to love it." And it was true.
He's the
Anyone
one that
who,
got me into Dust,
yeah,
100%. 30-minute
basically,
demo, I was into it.
anyone who came by, got a demo with him. They loved it, fell in love, bought models. It was true for all the staff here at Gigabytes. And also, on top of all of that, he was always available. He was always willing to come out no matter what. Always gave people great experiences, no matter who they were or what they were really looking for from a miniature game. They all walked away from the table happy. So we want to recognize Jim Godine as our Dust champion for the wall. He has moved back to France.
Look at his beautiful hair.
He's not with us in the States anymore, but he still keeps active with us as the staff and also on our online presence. And we really wanted to basically thank him for all the groundwork he did in terms of organized play here at the store. It was really Jim who started giving us the idea of a champion in the South just because of what he was able to do and what he was able to put out for us as a store. So the artwork was done by Emily Sampson through EGS Creations. Jim is Crazy Jim Godine, an American soldier, not French. I want everyone to know that. He's American. Here in the States, or American Marine in the world of Dust. So we're excited to put him up on the wall with our other champions and really see the champion wall grow. And with that, John, we've actually had a lot of people asking about what they can do to get themselves on the wall.
Yes, the Wall of Champions.
And with that, we want to see basically dedication to the game. And what that means is getting new people interested in the game, being a great positive force for the community, and sticking with it for a while. It's really easy to come into a game and get a bunch of people hyped up, flash in the pan, and then you move on to the next game system. But for Champions, we like people to have a real passion for it, really stick with it. And all these champions on the wall have all done this for a really long time. Whether it's Jim with Dust, he was here for 2 whole years, really promoting the game. Mark Buffington has been with us, I don't know how many years, always pushing D&D. Same with Ricky, Jamie, Sean. They've all been incredibly positive influences for a very long time here at Gigabytes. So, yeah. If you guys are interested in being a champion, you can contact us. We have an application on the store. We can do all that sort of stuff. So,
yep, and then when you become a champion, you get the full support of us. So you get my help figuring out how to do posts on stuff. You can message us anytime, like getting help on, hey, I want to organize this, want to organize that. It's great. You have our resources to help you get games going.
Absolutely. So definitely check it out through our online page. It is such a huge community benefit to be a champion. So we really appreciate it, and we really do our best to support everyone to the fullest. I know Coey Smith just became the champion of A Song of Ice and Fire, and there will be several leagues and things like that starting up soon.
Next week, I believe, right?
Yeah. And with that, we'll be doing basically a sale for anyone who joins the league on Song of Ice and Fire products. And with all that, we also have new War Machine and Hordes League starting soon, new Monster Apocalypse League, new basically everything league coming up for here in the store.
If it's a game, it's going to have a league. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is all fantastic. So I got people up at the door knocking to get in, John. So unfortunately, I'll have to leave now, but I will say adieu, and I'll see you guys next week.
And I will be back around 1 or 1:30. We're going to show off some of these Conquest models so you can see what you like and pre-order. So, see you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.